Picture a battlefield that's just perfectly stalled. The enemy vanguard is this immovable wall. Their defenses are locked in, and they're basically just waiting for you to break yourself against their armor. And then, the mist rolls in. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most terrifying, self-commanding engines of war to ever hit the skies, Smoketail, the Mistress of Mists. Now, this isn't just about raw power, right? We're talking high-level tactical intelligence. We're going to break down exactly how to wield an evasive weapon of mass destruction that completely dictates the tempo of the entire battlefield. You know, lore often describes a dragon's presence as a force of nature, but with Smoketail, this evasive veil translates directly into hard, unyielding battlefield mechanics. When we look at lane-based combat, that vanguard position is traditionally just a meat grinder. It takes the absolute heaviest hits and suffers the most attrition. Well, Smoketail flips that entire concept right on its head. Her smoke acts as a literal shield, entirely changing how the center of your formation absorbs enemy aggression during those critical opening rounds. And this lore becomes absolute mechanical dominance through her core command, Hunter's Wrath. By deploying Smoketail strictly in that vanguard lane, you activate a 2-round evade. That means she anchors the center of your army and completely nullifies early incoming damage. But here's the kicker, she doesn't just turtle up. While she's out there dodging incoming fire, she is simultaneously ramping up her own lethality with a massive 16% fire damage buff to herself and radiating a +20 strength and speed buff to whoever is sitting on your right flank. So she's a defensive anchor and an offensive amplifier all at once. But the really crucial point here is what she actually does with that 16% fire damage buff. 3 times. That is the multiplier, and frankly, it's her most terrifying tactical metric. Smoketail is engineered from the ground up to execute champion-class targets. If the enemy tries to place a heavy, armor-plated champion dragon in their vanguard to block your march, Smoketail's fire damage is literally tripled against them. She doesn't just hit the wall, she completely melts it down to the foundation. It creates this catastrophic damage spike that heavily armored defenders simply cannot mitigate. So watch how this scales up when we start treating these dragons as colossal, interlocking artillery batteries. While Smoketail holds the vanguard to prep her fire burst, introducing melees to the left flank creates an absolute nightmare scenario. Melees applies vulnerable and laceration to the enemy. When you synchronize these two, wow, melee softens the enemy vanguard's armor from the flank, perfectly timing those debuffs so that when Smoketail unleashes her tripled fire damage from the center, there is absolutely nothing left standing. The math behind this tempo advantage is just staggering. A standard Vanguard engagement is usually this slow, grinding war of attrition where both sides are just trading blows. But when Smoketail's anti-champion proc triggers against a vulnerable target, you aren't just winning a trade, you are instantly bypassing standard lane defenses. In a 3-lane battlefield, the second the Vanguard collapses, the enemy's flanks are completely exposed. Smoketail's damage spike doesn't just win her lane, it accelerates the timeline of the entire battle, forcing a total rout before the enemy can even mount a counteroffensive. Which brings us to a really critical concept in target acquisition, the sudden, precise strike. Because she spends those first 2 rounds evading, the enemy is completely lulled into a false sense of security, right? They end up burning their early round damage abilities straight into her mist. Then, exactly when their abilities are on cooldown and their defenses are dropping, she strikes. It makes her the absolute ultimate counterplay to very specific, highly stubborn defensive alignments that rely purely on outlasting the attacker. And this right here is the exact meta defense she was bred to destroy, the champion stall engine. If you spend any time studying high-level deployments, you know this alignment well. Your opponent puts a massive, high-health dragon like Vermithor or Tessarion in the vanguard. Their entire strategy is just to absorb your lane pressure, heal through the damage, and win this slow, agonizing war of exhaustion. Traditional aggressive formations totally break their teeth on a champion stall engine. But Smoketail, she sees a high-health champion and immediately queues up a triple damage execution. She completely invalidates their win condition. So that leads us directly into the ultimate tactical execution, the Giant Slayer formation. This is the absolute peak of 3-lane deployment. We have melees on the left flank, tearing into the enemy and applying vulnerability. We've got Smoketail anchoring the vanguard, evading all that early damage and preparing her anti-champion nuke. But remember that Hunter's Wrath buff from earlier? That +20 strength and speed to the right flank? Yeah, we put Sunfire in that right flank slot. Fueled by Smoketail's massive stat injection, Sunfire unleashes a high-radiant, armor-piercing burst right as Smoketail detonates the center. It is a perfectly orchestrated 3-lane synchronized strike designed to shatter the heaviest defenses in existence. Synthesizing all of this combat intelligence down, Smoketail is not just a dragon, she is the ultimate Vanguard tank buster. Her entire combat identity is defined by her ability to take the enemy's greatest strength, their heavy, immovable Vanguard, and turn it into a fatal liability. By combining that early round evasion with a devastating, highly targeted damage multiplier, she just dictates the entire flow of combat. She protects your army by denying the enemy their early strikes, and she empowers her adjacent flanks to sweep the field the very moment she shatters that center line. It completely changes how you have to look at the battlefield moving forward. You just can't rely on stacking armor in the center and hoping for the best anymore. So I'll leave you with this to ponder as you go back and review your own tactical deployments. When the mist rolls across the Vanguard lane, will your defenses hold, or will they be reduced to ash?